What is going on, guys? This is Evan, and you're watching Pick 6. So as you guys already know, sitting next to me is my partner Josh, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about Eric Decker signing with the Patriots, what that means for his offense, the injuries going on in training camp, and the replacement opportunities, and Dez Bryant and where we think he'll end up.
But before we get into that, make sure you guys like the video, share it with all your friends, comment your opinions, thoughts down below. If you guys have anything you want to see in these videos, let us know. And of course, subscribe and hit that bell and to get notifications. That way you guys will be up to date on every video. You'll see every video coming through right on your phone, so you guys can come and enjoy our content. Follow us on Twitter at JE_SportsYT. We'll have our latest reactions to tweets, sports opinions that won't make the video, all that cool stuff. And follow us on Instagram at J.E._sports. We have a bunch of cool intro options on there so far, and any other breaking news we'll have there as well. Ready to get going?
I am.
All right, so as he mentioned, Eric Decker signed a one-year deal with the New England Patriots yesterday after Jordan Matthews suffered a significant hamstring injury that will likely end his season. The Patriots put him on IR with intentions of waiving him once the injury settlement goes through. So, Evan, what kind of impact do you think Decker will have on this offense and in this locker room?
I think he'll have a huge impact on it. He's a good veteran wide receiver. He's proven himself for many years, coming off the Titans, where he did an okay season, but he was working with Mariota, who did not have a very good season. Now he's working with one of the best of all time, and he's still doing very good after he threw for 4,500 yards last season. I think Decker will do very good. Edelman's out with his suspension, so I think Eric Decker is a great fit there, especially with, as you mentioned, Jordan Matthews' injury.
I think Decker coming in not only will help the offense until Edelman gets back, but it'll open the offense when Edelman gets back from suspension. You can immediately insert Edelman into his comfortable role in the slot, have two big boys in Decker and Hogan on the outside. I think that it just gives Brady more weapons. They're loading up again for another year of heavy offense. They want to go after another Super Bowl in this Brady-Belichick era with the Gronk's health questions. Over the past few years, they needed to get a guy who really, other than his concussions, I don't think Decker has been injured much. This man has proven he can play with all-time great quarterbacks, being with Peyton Manning in Denver. I think that this is just another veteran weapon that the Patriots have always signed over the last 3-4 years, always brought in a veteran wide receiver in free agency or via trade to bring in, load up the offense even more. And I think with Edelman being suspended, Decker could see some significant targets, even up until Edelman comes back. I think you could look Decker as the number one wide receiver and the leader there. Brady honestly is known for spreading the ball around. What type of target share do you think that Decker will end up having?
I think realistically, Decker won't get right away into that big role. I think Chris Hogan will have majority of the receptions and targets this year. But with Decker being as good as he is, and with that veteran leadership he brings over Hogan, I think that he won't start off very good just because he won't get a lot of targets. But I think that he'll build his targets up throughout the season as he proves himself there.
Chemistry is key, and Brady has always targeted and thrown to his guys. As I mentioned, they like to sign those veteran free agent guys, or trade for them. Hasn't always worked out. They traded for Philip Dorsett last year, but Brady didn't have the chemistry with him, so he didn't get his targets. With Decker, the question will have to be if him and Brady can get that chemistry down in order to time to throw him. I think Chris Hogan is still a huge factor in this Patriots offense, and with the rookie running back Sonny Michel, this Patriots offense could be very dynamic this year with all the different weapons that they have. But I want to talk about Matthews. What if realistically he can come back this year, if he gets this injury settlement and they are able to waive him and he clears waivers? What teams do you think are looking to add a veteran receiver with? Let's face it, he's had some hamstring and leg injuries the past few years. What type of teams do you think could be looking to add that veteran asset to their lineup?
I think the team, off the top of my head, that could use another wide receiver on the team given the injuries, I think is Seattle. Russell Wilson is very good, but they don't have a really good offensive line, let's face it. But Russell Wilson is still, in my opinion, he's the second best quarterback in this league. He is very good. He's proven. He scrambles out of the pocket very well. He goes into the pocket very well. So I think that would be a pretty good fit if they can keep Jordan Matthews healthy. that'd be a great fit for him.
I agree. I think that Seattle, especially with the news of Doug Baldwin being out the majority of the preseason, we'll get to that in the next episode of the Pick 6. Tyler Lockett's their number one guy there. If Matthews could somehow, I think his season will end up being over because of the IR destination. I'm not exactly sure what exactly the rules are in the NFL, but the Patriots didn't cut him. They put him on IR with destination to reach an injury settlement that'll buy out the rest of his contract, I believe, and allow him to sign with the team if he is healthy. So I think Seattle is an option there. They're looking at a guy. Matthews is perfectly comfortable in the slot. You'd have Lockett and Baldwin, assuming Baldwin and Matthews both healthy, as their 1, 2, 3. Wilson needs some help there. They don't exactly have a great offense at all. Penny is a question mark. Carson is a question mark at running back. Offensive line's not good, and the defense isn't what it used to be. So Wilson's going to need the targets around him to make things happen. I also think a sneaky pick for Matthews would be the Cleveland Browns. You've got Coleman there, you've got Landry, you've got Josh Gordon, but with Gordon potentially not being back in time due to taking another leave of absence from the team to get his mind straight, I think Matthews could be inserted there as a veteran leader for these young guys like Coleman, and Antonio Callaway is over there coming off of DUIs and domestic violence charges, I believe, coming out of college. I think Matthews could be inserted there as a leader in that Cleveland Browns locker room.
So, I also kind of agree with what you were saying there about the Browns. That is a good point. But what I see the problem with that is that Josh Gordon said that he wants to be back by week 1, and that's his goal. I believe him. He said that he wasn't having a problem, but he did want to take a couple weeks away. And the preseason still hasn't even came yet. And this was like 2 weeks ago, give or take a little bit. So I do think Josh Gordon will be there. I don't see him getting a lot of targets. But knowing the Browns, they like the receivers there. So maybe they do sign him and use him as another option for that offense.
Matthews isn't the only good veteran receiver out there. There's still a few very good veteran receivers, which we'll get to in the next video. We're talking about guys like Jeremy Maclin and those guys in the next video. But I want to get into these injuries that have happened. So, interesting stat for you buffs out there. There have been a total of 10 ACL injuries so far in training camp before the preseason even started. Obviously, the first preseason game is tonight, Chicago Bears, Baltimore Ravens in the Hall of Fame game. But guys like Jonathan Cyprien, Jake Ryan, Hunter Henry, and Hercules Matatafa, the defensive end from Washington State that got drafted or was an undrafted signing for the Vikings, all have gone down with ACL injuries. What could Tennessee be looking at to replace a guy in Cyprien, who they had a lot of faith being back there with Byard as a young safety duo?
I think that there's a couple options out there. There's Kenny Vaccaro, who's pretty good. He's been in the league for a little bit now, still very good. Eric Reed's out there, Mike Mitchell's out there, and Ladarius Webb is still out there. They'll probably go and try out all those guys. They probably have already contacted all of them. If I've read the news correctly, they already have. So I think any of those options could be a good fit there with Kevin Byard.
Yeah, so they did reach out to all four of those guys, Mitchell, Webb, Reed, and Vaccaro. They're all going to work out sometime this next week. Out of those four guys, you're looking at Reed, who's a ball hawk, more of a coverage safety with some tackling ability. Vaccaro is more of a hard hit thumper. Mitchell is a little bit more veteran and old, and so's Webb. Out of those guys, which guy would you want back there with Byard in a young secondary?
Personally, I would go with Kenny Vaccaro. I love Kenny Vaccaro. He is a hard-hitting guy, but he's proven for a couple years now. He's still very good. He did well with the Saints. I think that could be a good fit there. But I don't know. Eric Reed, I love Eric Reed. He's still very good. Either of those guys would be the top option if I were with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Eric Reed he's the number one free agent out there for me right now. This guy literally is not signed because of his stance with the anthem. This dude needs to get on a football team. He is the best player available on the market. Happens to be a need for the Titans. The Titans are coming off a playoff berth. They want to build on that. You go get the young talent. Eric Reed is still, I think, 26 or 27 years old. He's still very young. Just got out of his rookie contract with the Niners, so he's not very old. He's athletic. He can play extremely well in coverage. He's a very good open field tackler. He can read defenses incredibly well, read quarterbacks. I mean, he was playing in a division with Goff, Wilson, the last few years. So I think that Eric Reid is the perfect fit for Tennessee. But I want to talk about Hunter Henry and Roberts, both going down for the Chargers. We saw that they didn't re-sign Antonio Gates. They had faith in Hunter Henry to take a huge step. And then Hunter Henry goes out and tears his ACL and is out for the entire year. How does this affect the Chargers offense, and what are some options that you think they should go after out there in free agency?
So, in my opinion, that was a huge loss. Hunter Henry is actually a very good tight end, and Antonio Gates has been holding him back the past couple of years. I think with that step, he could have been very good. But with Hunter Henry and Roberts both going down, I'd say that the best option is go with their veteran who's been there for quite a few years now, is Antonio Gates. But I also feel like with the people that they got there and some of their backups and as strong as they are, maybe they could look into maybe a possible trade and getting someone that could do the same thing as Hunter Henry could.
Yeah, I think Hunter Henry was primed for a big year this year. Gates was gone, so they weren't going to... I wouldn't say necessarily Gates was holding him back, but he was taking away some touches. Henry was battling some injuries the last year, and now he's finally come back healthy, and he tears his ACL. I liked Roberts a lot, but then he got hurt. So the Chargers looking at some tight ends. I think their best bet would be to go sign Antonio Gates back for one more year. Bring him back. He knows the system. He knows the coaching staff. He knows the players on that offense. He's got great chemistry with Phillip Rivers. I think that's your safest bet. But if you were talking about a trade, there are a few teams that have got some decent tight end options. Dennis Pitta is still a free agent, I believe, out there. Former Baltimore tight end. Max Williams is another Baltimore tight end that I'm not sure if he's a free agent or if he's still on that roster. But with the two tight ends that they drafted, Henry and Andrews, I think that he could be a receiving tight end option. So the Chargers got some places that they can go. They're a team that I thought was a Super Bowl dark horse this year. Rivers, Gordon, Keenan Allen. You got Mike Williams coming back. You had Hunter Henry. You've got one of the best secondaries in football. Obviously losing a few more guys this week, which we'll talk about in the next episode. But I thought the Chargers were a team that they've got to capitalize. They got to go all in this year. Rivers is on his dying legs, maybe 2, 3, 4 years left. They moved to LA. They've got a young fan base there. I think that they've got to go all in and go out and get the best possible option out there. Bringing back Antonio Gates, a familiar player with the organization, I think is the safe move and the right move. But if they wanted to go all in, a guy like Dennis Pitta, who's a huge risk, or going for a trade for one of those young guys that I mentioned, I think would be also a viable option. I want to talk about Jake Ryan. He was finally positioned to be a starter in Green Bay. I mean, he was a in-and-out starter the last few years. Matthews is aging. Nick Perry has found his role as an edge rusher. He was going to be that captain of that defense at the middle linebacker spot. How big of a loss is this for the Green Bay Packers defense, which is mightily improved in the secondary and is in probably the best division in football? What kind of loss is Jake Ryan for this Packers defense, which isn't all that good to begin with a lot of young, inexperienced players?
I think that it was a big loss because Jake Ryan is pretty good there. He would have been that captain there. But what I see about that is, as you said, though, they got a very young. I feel like he would have been a good fit there, but they're also very injury prone. Clay Matthews can't stay healthy. That whole defense has injury problems. So I feel like they probably need to work on building up that position even more with some young guys, given that their defense, besides their secondary, has a ton of older guys. I think they need to start working on that a little bit more too.
Yeah, the Packers had a really good draft. They brought in Alexander, they brought in Josh Jackson, but they're all secondary guys. They improved the secondary the most. Now your middle linebacker goes down, who's probably the one guy that wouldn't have gotten hurt. Matthews in and out with injury. Perry has been fairly healthy most of his career, but has had a few years, missed a few games here and there. I think Jake Ryan would have been their middle linebacker signal caller. I can't think of who else they have on that team at the top of my head at the linebacker spot. But I think that's definitely a huge loss. Me being a Vikings fan, I'm not going to say I'm happy, but it's another benefit for that division. But this Packers defense is going to have to step up. They've got 3 huge offensive teams in that division with Stafford and the Lions, Cousins and the Vikings, and Trubisky, a young quarterback. With the Bears, I think that those are some serious weapons on each team that they could end up having to face, and having a middle linebacker gone who's calling your plays, that's a huge loss for them.
Yeah. So, for what I think about that, though, I also had said that, but we're getting into these injuries there with Jake Ryan, and I also want to touch on one more thing before we get into this last segment, and that's I also want to talk about that Sonny Michel had you mentioned earlier, who got hurt in this past week. They don't think it'll be anything serious there, but with that backfield, what do you think that means for that team?
I think week one, I still thought Michel was going to be worked in slowly. He was not ever going to be that lead dog week one right away. I thought Burkhead would have gotten the goal line carries, James White and Jeremy Hill would split carries with Michel those first few weeks. But now that Michel has gotten hurt, I mean, the Patriots, they invested a first-round pick in a player, in a running back, which they have not done very often. So I thought that was telling of what kind of role they wanted him to have. But I also thought that he would have been worked in slowly, so you were going to see a lot of Jeremy Hill, a lot of James White, a lot of Rex Burkhead, kind of a committee until Michel showed that he could take over. I don't think the injury is anything serious. I think it's just another precaution. They're holding him out of training camp. Make sure he's completely healthy, because when they do, when he does show his flashes of being that bell cow running back there, being that guy that's going to get the 20 to 25 touches in the game, they're going to want him 100% healthy going forward. So I think that just means that the roles are going to slightly shift. Michel's going to be worked in more slowly. You're going to see a little bit more Jeremy Hill, a little bit more Rex Burkhead. James White's still going to be your pass-catching back. And it's going to, again, it's going to be a committee. I would stay away from all three of them in fantasy. That's your fantasy tip for the day. Stay away from all three of those guys in fantasy, especially in PPR. There's your fantasy tip for the day. Ready for the main segment?
I am. So let's dive right in. Dez Bryant is a big story right now. He's trying out with a ton of different teams, and the Browns are trying to recruit him. The Steelers are a big team to also recruit him. Antonio Brown has tweeted out multiple tweets about Dez Bryant possibly going to that team. And I think Antonio Brown definitely wants another weapon there. So what I feel about Dez Bryant going to the Steelers is the fact that Juju just came off a great year last year where he only had 50 receptions and had over 907. So I think that's a fantastic season, and he's only going to go up because he did that all in 58 receptions. They know that team now. They still got Le'Veon Bell there, even though they franchise tagged him. They got Antonio Brown, who is also the best wide receiver in the game. I don't think Dez Bryant would be a great fit there, but I feel like that would be what they would like to do because it gives them another weapon. What do you think?
So I personally have always thought the best fit for Dez Bryant has been Baltimore. When he turned down that deal with Baltimore, I did not like it. You know, they didn't have Crabtree at the time they turned down that offer. They brought in Crabtree. You got John Brown there, Willie Snead. They're all pieces. None of them are really true number ones. And Dez Bryant is a true number one receiver on the majority of teams. Yes, he's had some of his attitude issues. Yes, he's had some health issues. Yes, he needs to mature a little bit more off and on the field. But Baltimore is a team that is sneaky good this year, and you want a big vertical threat like Dez Bryant on that team. That's a team that I think would have been the perfect fit for him. He's obviously not going to end up going there. He turned down their offer. I think the team to watch out for the most is San Francisco. They got Pierre Garçon there. Marquise Goodwin is still over there. You got George Kittle at tight end. Again, none of those guys are real big vertical threats. That big body go downfield, out-muscled your defensive backs. Garçon's a slot receiver who's known for his possession game. Marquise Goodwin is more of your intermediate route runner. Dez Bryant can be your leader on that offense with a really good young quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo and a Kyle Shanahan offense that will know how to use him. I am pitching Dez Bryant to go to the Bay Area and sign with the San Francisco 49ers.
All right, so I was talking about Antonio Brown earlier in the Steelers. I think that's where they were trying to recruit him. I don't think that's where he's going to go. Personally, I don't think any other teams that have actually been talking about him is where I think he'll be best fitted. We talked about Jordan Matthews earlier in this episode about the Seahawks. Dez Bryant, I feel like, would be a great fit there in the Seahawks. They got Doug Baldwin. If he can come back healthy, then you can throw Dez Bryant in there with Tyler Lockett, who's one of the most underrated receivers in the game. Tyler Lockett is very versatile. Dez Bryant can be the big man, or you can use him in the slant. He can do it all. He can run the streak. So I feel like that'd be a fantastic fit for Dez Bryant, even though they haven't been much talk about Dez to the Seahawks. I think that's where he'd be best fitted. But I also like what Josh was saying there. And all their guys are young besides Pierre Garçon. So maybe throwing in another veteran like Dez Bryant, who's been in the league and proven for many years, I think that could be another great fit for him there.
I think a team that we need to watch out for, and I wrote this in my notes here just to make it a talking point. Matthews is gone on IR. Edelman is suspended. Why is no one talking about Dez Bryant possibly going to the Patriots? You know, we've had these discussions with Patriot players before. They're not afraid of shying away from controversy off field. They brought in James Harrison. They had the whole Aaron Hernandez situation. Granted, they didn't plan on the Aaron Hernandez situation, but they're not shy or scared of taking players who have got off-field issues. Watch out for Dez Bryant with the Patriots. I think that the top two teams need to be the 49ers. I like the Seattle fit a lot. You get Russell Wilson another weapon. I think the Niners and Seahawks should be the number 1 and number 2 option. I still love Baltimore, but I don't think he's going there. Watch out for the Patriots. If Dez Bryant is really true about winning, there's no better place to go out and win for the New England Patriots. Anything else you got to add?
And one more thing that I forgot to touch on back with Seattle is when he was back with the Cowboys this past season, he had a lot of drop issues this past season. I know that's a big scare for a lot of teams, but he was working with Dak Prescott. Granted, he's good, but he's no Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is amazing and proven for many years that he can do it. He's up there in the top tier with Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, who are two of the best of all time in this era. And Russell Wilson is not talked about enough for how good he really is in this league. If you throw him on that Seattle team, I guarantee that his numbers will go up drastically because Russell Wilson can do it all, and he'll find a way to get Dez Bryant the ball, too.
I am Josh. This is Evan. Thank you guys so much for watching the first episode of the Pick 6. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, I will see you guys later.